Okay.
All right, we have our beloved Pat McCabe here. Woman stands shining.
We're gonna get everybody, excuse me.
I don't know what I did there. I just don't want to take out as much as I can.
Okay. Good to see
Still
you.
passing things around. I feel always very relaxed when Pat comes to speak to our circle because her wisdom is very deep and connected and resonates directly to my heart. So welcome, Pat. There she is.
Everybody on Zoom. So say greetings, Yake Bene. I'm glad you're relaxed every time I come.
I am. I'm not relaxed until you walk in, because I'm always like, is she gonna make it?
Everybody on their toes. Yeah, it's a big deal to speak at home. Thank you for that grounding and the regulating of the nervous system. I was going to spend a little time doing that, but now I feel like we're kind of attuned there. So thank you. I'm going to start by acknowledging this one. Holy Mini Wachozane Waka, sacred water of life, or at Standing Rock, they taught a lot of the world Mini Wachoni. And I don't really know everything that those words mean. But my elders, every time they go into it deeply and go through each part of the sort of the etymology of the Lakota, it's vast. And I'm thinking of this one right now because I'm noticing that we got all the ditches being cleaned right now. That's very exciting. And that's part of what made this place of Taos feel like home for me was the acequias. I just loved working on the acequias. And I sometimes say that when Lila June, some of you know my daughter, was a baby girl, it would be working on the ditch, and I'd have her on my back or whatever, and then she'd want to have a nap, and so sit next to the ditch and nurse her, and then I'd lay a blanket down in the ditch, and I'd put her in the ditch, and I'd put a blanket over the top, so she was like napping in the acequia, and it was just so precious to me. And so for a little while there, I was hosting groups here in Taos, and there were people coming from all over the world, and we would spend like 10 days together. And we spent a lot of our times walking the ditches because I really wanted them to see, I wanted them to have it in their bodies. This is doable. Like, you kind of just need a mountain.
And snow.
And hopefully some snow. But, so the way I describe it, just so you know how I talk about us out there, you could weigh in on it, I guess. But I say, so, like every mountain, the mountains seduce the clouds over, and the clouds drop their snow or rain, and they go in rivulets down into streams, and then streams collect down at the bottom into rivers, and the rivers run out to the ocean, right? But here, when those streams turn into rivers and come down, they go into these ditches, and I've never even liked to use that word, but people don't know what I mean immediately when I say acequia. So I say these ditches, but these ditches, unlike anywhere that I know of in the United States, they have names. They have names. And they have generations of families that are associated with them. And it's a matter of family honor and community honor and well-being to keep that ditch clean and that water flowing. So that the next person, the next paciente, can receive their water. And so I describe it as this amazing cooperative, collaborative endeavor across an entire bioregion, because you have to throw in those sexy words to really get their attention. So across an entire bioregion, that isn't driven by money. It's not profit oriented. I mean, you can get fined for not showing up for pitch day, but that's a different matter, right? And so I say that, you know, like, for instance, even Boulder could be doing that if they wanted to, Boulder, Colorado. But what it would take, I mean, what would it take, right? It would take a reorientation to the water, to your neighbors, to your sense of community, to your understanding of real estate and property, probably to power and privilege a bit. But then you could participate in a system. I mean, we say that if we wanted to, we could water this entire valley with a shovel. That's powerful. That's power, actually. And we use other equipment sometimes, but if we really wanted to, we could call the whole gang together and do what a backhoe does in different places to make sure that the water was flowing, right? So I've been really examining, actually, that just that little shift that Boulder would have to make. The landscape is there. The clouds are there. The water is there. The rivulets and streams are there. The rivers are there. It's just the human being that has to reorient to make something so powerful, so simple, so blessed. So not only are these water systems not profit-driven, but they also bring the human being into mad love affair with earth and water. I mean, that's how I felt. Well, I fell in love with a man, but I also fell in love with his acequia. And that's how I ended up in Taos. Still here, 38 years later. So, you know, I just feel like so much about this time is about that just that little shift, that reorientation. That's what we're looking for in so many ways, this moment. And so for me, the acequias are such a guide right now, such a system that really calls on so much of the capacity of the human heart, the human body, the human mind, the human capacity for love and community, and also practical. I think if we wanted to, we could be pretty dang close to having food sovereignty here. We have to reorient. Right now, a lot of the acequias are growing alfalfa and such, but they could be shifted. And some of them are being held for tax purposes. Fair enough. But I just want us to, I don't know, like my son, I guess part of it I'm thinking about my son Buck, who works on all kinds of acequias all over. I think he worked on 35 properties last year. And some of them were putting the water back on the land that hasn't had the acequias running in over 100 years. And so, you know, he was up at Standing Rock, and then at home he was occupying the deep aquifer drilling rig. But he's kind of run out of any extra points with the legal system, so that might be part of his inspiration. But he says to me, he says, "Mom," and I also see this as the prefrontal lobe kicking in at last. I wasn't sure we were going to make it, but we did. But you know, he says, "This is real water protection, Mom. Is getting people out on the land and using the traditional waterways, using our traditional agriculture." Because one, we don't want, you know, they're moving water all around the place on paper right now, right? Which is why they want to drill these deep aquifer wells. 15 people. In this valley, into an aquifer that we know very little about. So, and that's all because of the water moving around on paper. So part of his logic is, we need to make sure that they understand that we're not just up here all water rich and not interested. We are interested. And the way you get real interested is when you get out on that ditch. So even if you don't have a ditch, if you go find someone else's ditch day and you hop on, they'll be happy to see you. But let them show you how they want you to use the shovel first, because it takes a little practice. So anyways, holy water of life. So grateful for our community's very unique relationship with this one. But that's not what I really came here to say. So I want to sing a song. I want to sing a grandmother calling song here. Oops, first. Wehaya heya, weya heya, wero. Wehaya heya, weya heya, wero. Eyo, wehaya heya, weya, weya heya, wero. Eyo, wehaya ehaya, wehaya ehaya, weya. Weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, ehaya. Wehaya, ehaya, weya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, ehaya, wehaya, ehaya, weya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero. Wehaya, heya, weya, ya, wero, eyo. Wehaya, heya, weya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. Wehaya, ehaya, wehaya, ehaya, weya, weya, ya, wero, eya, eyo. So I usually use the drums. I'm just starting to use a rattle. And I don't think I've ever had the grandmas come in at that pace. They were really having to boogie on in. I was seeing their shawl fringe really swinging and kind of a light perspiration going out. But they enjoyed that. So I was thinking, what can I offer at this time as any kind of orientation? Because so many things are being dismantled all at once. And I have a good brother from Africa, maybe some of you know him, his name is Bayo Akomolafe. And we get paired to be in different events a lot, in different gatherings all over. And I call him the great dismantler, and the great unraveler, and the great unweaver. So that's what his goal is, always to do that, and my goal is always like, how can I give some kind of handhold and foothold for us to have some kind of ground to stand on. So we're an interesting mix together. I was just with him recently. And so part of the way that I've been orienting to this time right now, and I guess actually for quite a while. So one, I guess I can say that, I've had a practice, a ceremonial practice, and then it's become much more of a not so much a community ceremonial practice lately. It's been much more private ceremonial practice. But I've been putting out the prayer, and I probably said it in here a few times, show me how to participate fully in the very highest possibility for life and light and love. So I've been making that prayer for a while, years. And then a new addition to that is, show me how good it can get. Show me how good it can get. I wanna know, how good can it get? I wanna see how good it can get. I wanna feel how good it can get. I wanna live how good it can get. I wanna be how good it can get. Show me, how good can it get? And there's been such an interesting phenomenon working with that prayer, especially in this time. But I almost feel like it's created a different dynamic in my relationship with spirit and the spirits, the helper spirits. In my cosmology, we're all surrounded by gobs and gobs and gobs of spiritual helpers, but they can do nothing for us until we ask. So this is my new way of asking. And what I feel like the dynamic is becoming with them is they're really excited. They're like, we're excited about this inquiry. Like, we don't even really know how good it can get. Like, how are we even supposed to know how good it can get? This is like God, like, I don't even know how good it can get. So it's almost like a mutual challenge to the spiritual realm of putting things together, of bringing together confluences of all different kinds, right? And so, there's a big part of me that feels like I don't have to make a big course correction at this moment. Like, I've been on my course by and large. But there's still, some way to hold this whole dynamic going on in this nation state, this superimposed nation state upon Indigenous continent, as I sometimes describe it. And so one of the things that I've turned to, I say that in Indigenous timekeeping and Indigenous history, the history of human presence on Earth is much longer than Western science acknowledges. It's like hundreds of thousands of years. And so we say that we have lost worlds before. So you may have heard Indigenous people say, this is the fifth world or the sixth world. And I would say that we are in a transition from one world to the next right now. And so lately I've really been thinking a lot about what my clan grandfather was talking about when he was telling me about when we lost the world to the Great Flood. And he said, at that time, Dragonfly came to the people and told them, if you were to climb into the tall, hollow reed, you might be able to survive this flood. And so some of the people climbed into the hollow reed, and that floodwater rose, but didn't go over the top, right? And then it fell, and then it receded. And so those human beings were able to survive. And so they emerged out of the hollow reed. Let's ask us to picture that and feel it in the body. To emerge out of the hollow reed onto this very damp earth. And the sun's finally out. And having a look around. That was a very deep and powerful cleanse. of what had been before. And so when I think about that time, and so when I say also that, I think we're in the transition from one world to the next, I can't say that I know what that means. I don't know that it means, we're already having a lot of cataclysmic loss of life on this planet. That's happening. Many peoples have been suffering hard for quite a long time. The United States is getting an interesting taste of some suffering, but from different ways, other than just earth changes, although we're also getting that as well. But I can't say that I know what that means for this world to change from one world to the next. There are some people who propose that like a simultaneous earth is being birthed at the moment. And I have my thoughts and ideas about that. Well, I'll say a little bit about that. So, for me, I've been in Taos. I first came to Taos when I was 19. I think I moved here full time when I was like 21. So I feel like I pretty much grew up here. And I'm a product of this place. And I've had lots of different lives here, like many people who've lived here a long time. And I have fed a family of 4 on $50 a week in this town. I have hustled in this town. I have done a lot of things here. But, at a certain point, I began to experiment. When I had my third child, my husband at that time said to me, I said this to someone recently, and they thought it was hilarious. I don't know. But anyway, he said to me, well, I'm good with you staying home with the boy and not working until he turns 5. ... So that, in Taos, that's a very generous offer for a man to offer to a woman in my book. And so, so what I did during that time, my time of freedom, was I started experimenting with that idea of do what you love and the money will follow. I was like, is that really true? And so I decided I'm going to try to put it to the test. But one of the first big obstacles was I didn't know what I loved. I was so molded into survival and scarcity, and you have to. I was delivering newspapers when I was 11 years old and getting up at 6 in the morning before school. So I had to start locating what I loved. And the only things I could come up with at the time was I love to bake and I love to give presents. Hey, it was a start, and so I started Pat a Cake's Bootleg Bakery, which was out of my house, thus the bootleg. And I would take my baby son in his stroller and walk all around the town and sell our goodies. And to this day, there are people who I'm Pavlov's dog, right? They're looking you got any of those brownies on you? Where are they? What's going on? I want my sugar fix, So yeah, that became really popular and it was hugely successful. And then I also started Bodacious Balloons, full service balloon catering, in which I had, at that time, some guy in town was willing to let me rent a helium tank that I kept in my living room and filled balloons and delivered. And people loved that around here. And that got to be so big and popular, it drove my husband crazy because the living room was always filled with balloons. My toddler son loved it. But it got so big and unwieldy that it was like, okay, you need to get a storefront now if you're going to keep doing this. Plus, it was a little dangerous to have this big helium tank in the back of my car sometimes, and then in my living room. And I thought to myself, if I move this to a storefront, it's not going to be any point. There's going to be no joy in this anymore. Everything that goes along with that. So I backed off. But I felt like I had proved to myself, there is something with this. Do what you love and the money will follow thing. So that was sort of the beginning. And the reason I bring that up is because I say, my life has expanded so hugely, and I feel like I'm living the life that, as I began to know more and more about what I wanted, how I might want this life to be if I could have it any way. And Spirit kept telling me, he's talking to human beings, but also to me, you guys can have it any way you want it. Do you know that? You can have it any way you want it. Right now you're saying you want it like this, but just remember, you can have it any way you want it. And so I was like, wow. So I guess what I'm saying is my life grew to expand so big and so amazing, and having so many of the elements that I always dreamed of. I have total freedom, it feels like. I only do work that I want to do. And only when I want to do it. I get to honor my nervous system. I get to honor my spiritual life. I get to honor my ceremony. Then all that happened right here in this community. And so sometimes when I go to Smith's and I'm standing behind, sometimes some guys, or in this case I'll say guys that are getting off work somewhere, and I listen to them and they're like, yo bro, what's up? Nothing much, man, same old, yeah, gotta keep working. And I feel that restriction of that scarcity and that confinement, and that this is the only way and this is all it can ever be. And I mean, there's nothing, when I say I only work when I want to work and I only do what I want to do, it doesn't mean I don't work hard. So I got my puritanical work ethic still in there somewhere, but it's different. And so I'm not saying that I don't respect what people do here, but what I'm saying is this is the exact same town, the exact same reality, the exact same circumstances, but it's almost like I'm living in an alternate Taos sometimes. How did that happen? So these are the things that I try to talk about, that I want to talk about, not only at home, I mean, this is vulnerable to say at home, but out in the world. And I feel like it's that same shift that you would have to make to develop a whole Acequia system and change the whole orientation of Boulder, Colorado, to be able to accommodate a completely new vision. All the pieces are right there. They're right there. So going back to emerging from the hollow reed, what I've been asking myself about that, let me connect this a little better. So the changing of the worlds, I don't know, maybe the earth doesn't have to be destroyed in order for earth to continue. Maybe there is a simultaneous earth of some sort. So that's my exploration of that idea, and I don't know. But going back to the hollow reed, what I've been asking myself when I think about that scenario is, how can my life in this moment serve those who are about to emerge from the hollow reed? When we move from whatever the old world was into the new world that we are dreaming of, hopefully we've got to start cultivating that place of want. The spirits talk to me about this all the time these days. You've been taught to fear your desire. And they say capitalism made you fear and become suspect of your own desire. But your desire is an essential component of co-creating reality. So as we cultivate, what comes next, and whoever is going to be the ones to carry that forward, I'm asking, how can my life serve? And the way that I see that my life can serve is I say, I want to create the best possible soil for their seeds for the future. And the way that I see to do this is by shifts in consciousness. How can we shift consciousness? I want to shift consciousness in all the ways I can towards the reality of Earth, which is that we are interbeing. It's hugely interrelated. I can't be well if you're not well. Ultimately, I can't be my highest expression if you are not well. Earth cannot be her highest expression without us. She might be able to live without us, but I don't know if she can be her highest expression without us. And so, given that, I want to start working on the places of reparation. And I am working on those places, and part of the way I'm working on that is in land reunion, or quote, land back situations, where Indigenous people are taking on the stewardship of traditional lands and sacred sites again, because there are people who want to come forward to help us be able to continue to enact what we had going in those places that upheld the honor of human being and our part on the sacred hoop. I want to work with the young people. I want to do reparations between men's nation and women's nation. There's just, I mean, the work is clear when you look at it going that direction, right? And so this is how I'm spending time. And so I feel like, and I'm going to end, when as we approach the proverbial cliff edge, this work is going to serve either to keep us from going over the cliff by beginning to bring us into right relations again, or even if we go over and the next, whoever comes next, whoever those human beings are that emerge again to begin life anew, I would love for them to be able to start from a place and a soil that does not have the bitterness, that does not have the sorrow, does not have so much grief, it does not have so much alienation and separation. We can repair so much of that in our own families, in our own community, on global levels, however it is. And that's what I want to see for them. So that's one bit of solid ground that I feel like I can move within, that calls upon my highest nature, calls upon my greatest expansion, and my spiritual guides, and all seem very, very excited about this. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Kat. I love the thought of the spiritual guides being excited. That's really great. I always kind of picture them as sort of, you know, they're not too attached to the emotional energy. They're just kind of chilling, but it's good to see them get excited.